It's recap time. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Shower Podcast, the podcast where I'm in my shower and you do you. I'm your host, Chip, and this is not my usual intro. This is a bit of a special episode. Unfortunately, I will be away for a few days, and I found out this interesting way of filling the gaps with recaps from previous episodes. If this is your first time here, use it as an opportunity to find topics that you might be interested in and go back to listen to the original ones. If you are a usual listener of the Shower Podcast, well, again, this might be a rehearsal of topics that you might be interested in. Otherwise, I understand if you want to wait for me to be back. But in the meanwhile, the podcast needs to continue and we need to reach day 365. Having said that, I will not keep you longer. Thank you very much for listening. As always, a like and a subscribe. They are always welcome. And now, recap time.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to do something a bit different. We're taking a fascinating shortcut through some really core ideas about, well, human behavior and design.
That's right. We're looking at why some things just feel easy and others, well, they feel like pulling teeth.
Exactly. We're synthesizing four really powerful principles. These were originally put together in a great little mini-series by Chip over on his show, the Shower Podcast.
Which is just a brilliant concept, by the way. You know, his whole premise, the podcast where I'm in my shower and you do you. It's got that light touch.
Totally. But the insights are seriously useful. So our plan is to pull out the core wisdom from his episodes 318 through 321.
Right. Giving you 4 key leverages to look through. Hick's law, Fitt's law, the Weber-Fechner law, and Ziff's law. Basically tools to understand things like friction, perception, attention.
Yeah, it's like a toolkit for understanding why things are designed the way they are, or maybe how you could design your own life a bit better. And hey, if these ideas grab you, definitely go check out Chip's original episodes. They're great.
For sure.
But let's dive in. First up, Hick's law. This tackles that feeling that misery when you have way too many choices. Chip calls it the friction of choice.
Oh, yeah. The classic example is like staring at a giant menu, or maybe more relevant today, endless scrolling on a streaming app trying to pick something.
Right.
The law basically says the more options you have, the longer it takes you to decide. And critically, it's not a straight line. It slows down logarithmically.
And that logarithmic part, that's what makes it feel so crushing sometimes, isn't it? It's not just a little bit harder with each option.
Exactly. It compounds. The mental effort ramps up really fast at the beginning.
And Chip pointed out something important here. It's not just the number of choices, right? It's also about how clear they are.
Precisely. It's the cognitive work needed to understand each option. Think about a remote control with weird symbols versus one with clear labels like play, pause.
Ah, okay. So if you know what things are, even if there are more of them, you can move faster.
Yeah, familiarity lets you just glide through. New or unclear options force you to stop, scan, compare, second guess.
Okay, so that curve, it's steepest at the start. Going from 2 choices to, say, 5 choices adds a lot more delay than going from 20 to 23.
That's the key mathematical insight. The biggest pain point is early on.
So does that mean the answer is always just fewer options?
Yeah.
Cut everything down?
Well, not always. Sometimes fewer is better, sure.
Yep.
But often the smarter fix is making the decision itself feel smaller, more manageable, bite-sized.
How do you do that?
Grouping things is a big one. Like, instead of 50 menu items, you choose a category first: appetizers, mains, desserts. Then the choice within the category feels less overwhelming.
Or hiding advanced settings unless someone specifically asks for them.
Right. Put the common stuff front and center, easy to grab.
I love how Chip applied this outside of just screens. Like your morning routine, if you have 12 little decisions before you even get started.
Which coffee, which mug, which cereal. Yeah, you've paid that mental tax before your day really begins.
His idea of a starter set, same breakfast, same first task, it cuts out that initial friction.
Exactly. You're not limiting your whole life, you're just streamlining the start. Reducing that low-level decision fatigue so you can focus on what actually matters. Less friction.
Which actually is a perfect segue, because once you've chosen, you often have to act. And that brings us to the next law Chip covered in episode 319, Fitt's law. This one's about the friction of movement.
Right. Fitt's law is all about how quickly and accurately we can physically move to interact with a target. It came out of experiments back in the mid-century tracking how people move.
And the core idea is pretty simple, isn't it?
Deceptively simple, but powerful, basically. The time it takes to hit a target depends on how far away it is and how big it is.
So far away and small means slow and you might miss.
Yep. Slow and potentially inaccurate. Lots of little corrections as you approach.
Close and big means
Fast and accurate, you can move more confidently.
we feel this all the time on our phones and computers, right?
Yeah.
Trying to tap that tiny little X to close a pop-up ad
Ugh, yes. That tiny hesitation, the careful aiming.
versus like hitting a big submit button at the bottom of a form feels totally different.
That hesitation, that's your brain calculating the odds of missing and making micro adjustments before you even move. Designers use Fitts law constantly because errors are frustrating.
So the big takeaway for design is make the things people use often big and nearby.
Pretty much. Reduce the distance, increase the size for frequent actions.
And Chip highlighted a really neat trick for digital interfaces related to this. The screen edges.
Ah, yes. Screen edges are like a superpower for Fitts law. If you put a button right up against the edge of the screen...
Your cursor just stops there. It can't overshoot.
Exactly. The edge acts like an infinitely large target in that one dimension. It gives you a physical backstop, so you can kind of fling your mouse towards it much faster and more carelessly, knowing you'll land on target.
Which reduces that aiming time significantly. Makes it feel easier, calmer.
Totally. And this isn't just digital. Think about your physical space.
Like putting the coffee mugs right next to the coffee maker, not across the kitchen.
Or having a wide-mouthed jar for utensils near the stove instead of fumbling with a narrow container. Making your frequently used tools easy to grab without precise movements.
It's about designing these generous landing zones in your environment.
And there's a psychological win, too, as Chip pointed out. When targets are big and easy to hit, you feel less microtension. Your body kind of knows the movement will be easy before you even start.
Okay, so we've got Hick's law for choice friction, Fitts law for movement friction. Let's shift gears a bit. Episode 320 tackled the Weber-Fechner law, which is about perception, how we notice change.
Right. This one moves from external action to an internal measurement. It's a fascinating insight into how our senses work, the core idea. We perceive ratios of change, not just raw differences.
Okay, ratios. Can you give an example? That sounds a bit abstract.
Sure. The classic one is weight. If you're holding, say, a 1 kilo weight and someone adds half a kilo, you'll definitely notice. It feels significant.
Right, feels like a 50% increase.
Exactly. But now imagine you're holding a 10 kilo weight. If someone adds that same half a kilo, you might barely notice it, or not notice it at all.
Huh, even though it's the same absolute amount of weight added.
Right, because the ratio of change compared to the starting line is much smaller. 0.5 kilograms added to 10 kilograms is only a 5% increase. Our perception is tuned to that proportional difference.
It's logarithmic, like Hick's law, but for perception.
Okay, makes sense. How does this play out in, like, motivation or habits?
Oh, hugely. Think about starting a new habit, maybe exercise. Going from zero exercise to working out twice a week feels like a massive victory, right? The ratio of improvement is infinite, or at least very large.
Yeah, feels amazing.
But 6 months later, maybe you're working out 4 times a week, adding one more session to make it 5. The absolute improvement is still one session, but it feels less impactful.
Because the baseline is higher, the percentage gain is smaller. Exactly. Your perception has recalibrated. So that feeling of a plateau isn't necessarily you failing, it's just your perception adjusting to the new normal. Understanding this can help you avoid getting discouraged.
So, if you want a change to be noticed, you need to focus on the ratio.
Yes. Or manipulate the baseline. Chip suggested this. If you want to appreciate a small improvement, maybe reduce the noise first, like turn down the music before judging a tiny sound quality upgrade. Or clear your whole desk before seeing how much a new organizer helps.
Ah, you make the change proportionally bigger against a quieter or cleaner slate.
Right. And the flip side is useful too. If you want to make a change that might be unpopular, like a small price increase or a minor interface tweak.
You don't want it to be noticed too much.
Exactly. So you bundle it, you hide it within a larger context, like a bigger update with lots of clear benefits, or alongside a rebranding. You use the Weber-Fechner Principle to keep the change below the threshold where people really notice or care.
That's quite strategic. Okay, powerful stuff.
It really governs a lot.
Which brings us to the final law Chip synthesized from episode 321, Zipf's law. This one is about how attention and usage get distributed.
Yeah, Zipf's law describes a really common pattern you see everywhere. When you rank things by how often they're used or how big they are, you find that a very small number of items at the top account for a huge amount of the usage.
The short head, it's called.
Right, a few dominant items, and then everything else trails off into this really long, thin tail of items that are used or occur much less frequently.
And the pattern is pretty specific, isn't it? Like, The second item is used about half as much as the first, the third about a third.
Roughly, yes. It follows that kind of 1/rank distribution. You see it in word frequencies. The is way out in front. You see it in city populations, website traffic, product sales. It's almost universal.
Why does that happen? Is there a reason for this extreme concentration?
The main drivers seem to be things like preferential attachment, basically. Popular things tend to get more popular. Think of a snowball effect. And also, we tend to reuse things that are familiar and easy to access.
Okay, so the head gets all the action. Makes sense. But Chip argued the tail is really important too, right? Even though each item there is rare.
Absolutely critical. The tail is where all the variety and nuance lives. In language, it's the rare words that allow for precise expression. In commerce, it's the niche products that cater to specific tastes.
So while the head gets the volume, the tail represents diversity, specificity.
Exactly. And importantly, while each item in the tail is rare, there are so many of them that in aggregate, the tail can be as large or even larger than the head in terms of total variety or even total value in some contexts.
Right, so if you're designing something or even organizing your own stuff, you have to deal with both.
That's the challenge. Chip's advice boils down to two things. First, respect the head. The things you use constantly, your main tools, your core files, they need to be incredibly fast, clean, easy, almost automatic. Optimize the heck out of them.
Because that's where most of the interaction happens.
Right. But second, respect the tail. The things you use rarely, archive files, complex settings, old photos, they don't need to be front and center, but they do need a reliable path. They need to be findable.
So, good search, consistent naming, logical structure,
Yeah.
even if you only dip into it once a year.
Precisely. Because the tail is often where trust is built with specific needs or specific moments. Losing access to something in the tail can be incredibly frustrating, even if it's rare.
And that loyalty or trust built in the tail, it can become its own kind of asset over time.
It absolutely can. So tying these four laws together, Hick's, Fitts, Weber-Fechner, Zipf's, they're not just abstract concepts.
No, they feel like really practical ways to understand friction, perception, attention.
They give you a framework for seeing why things feel easy or hard, why some changes land well and others don't, where focus naturally goes. They're all about structuring things to create cleaner, easier paths.
For choice, for movement, for perception, for finding things.
Yeah, it's about designing for how humans actually work.
Okay, so that leads us to a final thought for you, the listener, building on Chip's synthesis here. We know the world tends to organize into this dominant head and this long, diverse tail.
Yeah.
How can you consciously use these ideas maybe in your digital life, your workspace, even your routines?
How can you make those common paths, the head, super smooth and effortless?
And at the same time, ensure that the less common, but still important paths, the tail, remain organized, findable, and reliable when you need them, making both clean and discoverable.
That's a great design challenge for everyday life, seeing your world through these four lenses.
Definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive into these four fundamental laws. And a huge thanks again to Chip for the fantastic source material.
Absolutely. Great stuff. Host speaker and expert speaker. See you tomorrow.